Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our residence information session for the St. George campus of the University of Toronto. We are so very happy that you could join us this morning. My name is Melinda Scott, and I am the Dean of Students at University College. And I have with me here today a team of folks from across the University of Toronto, across all of the colleges and the residences, and we're here to provide you with all the answers that you might need to your questions about residence life and the residence admissions process. I'm going to introduce all of them to you in just a moment, but before we do that, we'd really love to get a sense of who we have joining us here today and where in the world you're joining us from. So we'd love it if you'd take a minute to enter your name and where you're joining us from in the chat on the side of your screen. If you can, we'd also love to know what college you belong to or what faculty you belong to as well. Over the course of the session today, you'll also have the opportunity to ask any questions that you might have in that chat. We have a team of folks behind the scenes who are going to be answering questions in the chat, and we'll do our very, very best to answer as many questions as we can on camera at the end of the session as well. If you have a question that you would like to ask privately, note that in your question when you post it to the chat, and one of the chat moderators in the back will make sure that they don't post it to the wider group. As well, if you have a particular question that you think is relevant to your residence or your college or your faculty, note that in your question, and we'll try to get one of the folks who specifically hear from your college or residence to respond to that question for you. To give you a better sense of who's joining me today and who all these fine folks are who are going to be responding to your questions, I'd like to take a second just to introduce them to you. On camera today, I'm going to have with me Leah McCormick-Smith, Dean of Students at New College, Kelly Castle, Dean of Students at Victoria College, David Kim, Dean of Residents at Chestnut Residence, Steve Moss, Dean of Students at Innis College, Kristen Moore, Dean of Students at Trinity College, Dwayne Rendell, who's Dean of Students at St. Michael's College, Mauricio Rodriguez, Assistant Dean Residence Administration at Woodsworth College, and DJ Cison, who's the Manager of Housing Services at Student Housing. Now in the chat, we also have Jordan McCory from University College, Nikki Butler from New College, Jenny Owens from Innis College, Jen DuRoss from St. Michael's College, Allison McDonald from Trinity College, Wanda Hughes and Shiny Balachandran from Victoria College, Cohen McBride from the Chestnut Residence, and Suzanne Camillo and Logan Blair from Housing Services. Now, there is absolutely no expectation that you remember all of those names or all of those colleges or residences. We really just want you to know that there's a team of folks here today to answer your questions and that we have representation from every college and residence. So please don't be shy to ask away and to ask some of those more specific questions that you might have. So I'd like to take a second just to turn to our agenda for the morning to give you a sense of what we'll be talking about throughout this next hour. So welcome and introductions. That's what we're doing right now. In a moment, we're going to be providing you with an overview of residence life on this U of T St. George campus. We know that the St. George campus, the residence life here is organized a little bit differently than it is at some other universities that you might be familiar with. So we want to make sure that you understand how residence works at U of T. We'll also be talking to you about residence life and what you can expect living in residence in terms of support and engagement. We'll walk you through the 2020 residence admissions process and some of those changes or questions that have come up that might be particularly related to the COVID-19 situation. And we'll also be tackling some frequently asked questions, things that we know that first year students are often wondering about in terms of residence, and some of the new frequently asked questions that have come up related to COVID. And then we'll be turning it over to questions and answers. We want to make sure that we can answer as many questions as possible today. So don't be shy to post those questions in the chat throughout the session. And with that, I am going to be turning it over to Leah McCormick-Smith, who's Dean of Students at New College, to provide that overview of residences on the St. George campus. Leah?
Good morning, everybody. So as Melinda said, I am Leah McCormick-Smith and I am the Dean of Students at New College. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how you can expect residences to be organized. So the first piece is students within the Faculty of Arts and Science will have a college assignment as well as being part of the Faculty of Arts and Science. And it's really helpful to think of your college as your home base on campus and the first point of contact for any of your academic or personal supports while you're at the University of Toronto. So your college assignments, and I see lots of you putting them up in the chat, so I think you mostly know what they are, but would be Innis College, New College, St. Michael's College, University College, Trinity College, Victoria College, or Wordsworth College. And so when you got your offer letter, you would have had Faculty of Arts and Science and then your college as well. All of the colleges will offer similar amenities and supports, but they also vary in style and size. And so that's important to remember. Where there is space, Faculty of Arts and Science students are generally assigned to residents at their college. Obviously, this is an unprecedented year, and we're going to get into some of those specifics, but generally speaking, most students who are assigned to a college are then housed with them. Now, where it gets a little bit different is students admitted to the professional faculty programs are not assigned to a college, and instead their home base becomes their faculty. And so these programs would include the Daniels Faculty of Architecture, the Faculty of Applied Science and Engineering, the Faculty of Kinesiology and Physical Education, and the Faculty of Music. So in those cases, you don't have a college, your home base is your faculty, but you may still be assigned a space at a college residence or also at the Chestnut residence, which is not assigned to a college, is not affiliated with a college. It's really important for folks to remember that all Faculty of Arts and Science and professional faculty students can select Chestnut residence as their preferred residence. And so it's really important to look at some of those details about what the different residences offer to make that decision. And regardless of where you're assigned a residence space, all residences are committed to offering a safe and welcoming and supportive experience for our students, regardless of where they come from. And so that's a little bit about how you can expect those residence spaces to be organized. But then the second half of that is understanding a little bit more about what residence life is like actually and the fun stuff. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to the Dean of Students from Victoria College, Kelly Castle, who's going to tell you a little bit more about what your residence experience will look like.
Thanks, Leah. As Leah said, I'm the Dean of Students at Victoria College. One of the best things about living in residence is that first year students have upper year students who live on the floor with them. Usually they're called dons, sometimes they're called residence assistants. They'll give you support, getting started, learning the ropes of the university, figuring out what you need to do and where you need to go and where you can buy things. They will provide friendship, of course, and help you find others. They will give you programs, so study groups, transition to university groups, social events, and they'll be a conduit to lots and lots of services on campus, registrarial services for academic advising, the Dean's Office for counseling, and broader University of Toronto services as well. All of those people report in to live-in full-time professional staff. Those are usually called assistant deans of residence life or campus life coordinators or residence life coordinators. All of those people flow into the Dean's Office, so the whole thing is very smooth. You'll have students who support you and staff who all work together with them. All of the residences also offer meal plans or have kitchen facilities. Some have both. Whatever your residence assignment is, when you find that out later in the summer, you'll find out more about the dining options available to you. No matter what, you won't go hungry, and we'll help you figure out your eating options. The next two bullets are educational programming and social programming. Part of the beauty of living in residence is that those two actually come together. They weave themselves together in a way that's sort of organic. So we all like it when we hear conversations like a student who's in physics and a student who's in music and a student who's a philosophy student all sitting talking about climate change and what they're going to wear tonight. So all of this sort of weaves together in a fun way. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how all of these things come together, but I'm sorry I have to look at my little screen here. So some examples that happen at various colleges are dance classes. I'm not invited. Creative writing, journaling, Bob Ross paint nights. Why is Melinda laughing? That was a good move. Bob Ross paint nights, friendly competitions like trivia, spelling, and cooking, weekly study groups, online fitness and wellness classes. Again, peer academic supports, there are lots of those too. Study groups, advising, stuff that's discipline specific. So there are lots of really great options for peers to help coach you through and talk to you about your academic success. Talks over tea, I bet we call it plenty to talk about, public speaking workshops, and my personal favorite, which happens to be going on at Wordsworth this year, is time management with online work. So last week I signed up my son for some hockey activities, and I said that it was 2018. So clearly if I can't get my years straight, I could use some help with my days and my months. Just saying, a little bit of a problem. What else do I have here for you? What is our next one? Sorry. Personal and academic support. There are lots of personal and academic support. Some of those I've touched on already with residence life coordinators and campus life coordinators and the peers who will be on your floors. But there's also, of course, registrarial assistance, which will be your main assistance in terms of academic advising. That happens at the college level and in the different professional faculties. So wherever you are in the residences, we'll help you connect with the faculty registrar or the college registrar who will best suit you. We also have lots of social spaces. Different colleges and different residences have are appointed differently. So some of us have music rooms, some of us have exercise rooms, fields, our beloved quads all over the university, quadrangles, so they're little places for people to sit everywhere, and lots of study spaces. Overall, we know that this is going to be a little bit of a different experience than university usually is. But we've been practicing for a few months now and we're getting really good at it. Our students are really busy. Our upper year students are getting ready to welcome you to orientation plans, to clubs, to societies. I went once to look at, because I'm often talking to students about how many clubs and societies there are for students, and I looked it up and I found that there were 245 on the University of Toronto website. And then I realized that that was just A to C, and there were actually over 1,400 clubs and societies at U of T. So there are going to be lots of different options. Many of those have really exciting new varieties of things online. So you'll be able to figure out ways of getting involved no matter what the circumstances when you arrive here. We will do our very best to get you comfortable and to make this year special. After that, it's going to be up to you, and I'm sure you'll find lots of friends. So welcome, and I'm looking forward to meeting you. Now we will turn over to David Kim, the Dean of Students at Chestnut.
Thanks, Kelly. A great outline of some of the activities I'll anticipate to see. And hello, everyone. So great to see you all and joining from so many areas around the world. It's really neat just going through some of the posts there to see where people are joining us from and whatever time zone you're in. So as mentioned, I will be going over the process related to admission to residence. And so there are a few key steps that I will briefly cover. As you can see, they're bullet pointed on the presentation, but you can always refer to the Vice Provost Students website for further details. It's also important to keep in mind that we're working to ensure that students have the opportunity to indicate their interest in residence with some flexibility to cancel if required. So jumping into it, the first step is that offers have already started to go out in early June. That's come from our Housing Services Office. And students have been asked to pay the first deposit of $600 by June 19th. Now, keep in mind, this is refundable until July 31st. The second step is that starting in mid-July, students will be contacted again to confirm their residence space, and at that point, asked to pay a second deposit. That deposit amount will be $1,400. And that will be due by July 31st. So it's the same date for any individuals who opt to withdraw, as outlined in the first step. Now, we also understand that some students may not be able to confirm this at this point, whether or not they will be able to arrive. So you will be able to maintain your status as an active applicant into the fall. The third step is once you've confirmed your residence space, you've paid the first and second deposit, specific residence offers will start to go out in early August with information about your space within that residence environment. So at this point, only students who do not receive their preferred choice of residence will have the opportunity to cancel their application and receive a refund. So if they prefer, they are able to remain on a wait list for a space with their preferred residence. So that covers the steps that we'll be working with for the next few months. Again, I'd say refer to the Vice Provost Students website. If you have any questions, feel free to point them to our group. And other than that, we look forward to seeing you this fall. So I will pass off to Steve Maas, who's the Dean of Students over at Innis College. Thank you, everyone.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Before I take you through a couple of the frequently asked questions, I did just want to encourage all of you, if you haven't yet had an opportunity to enter in your question, a question perhaps that we haven't had an opportunity to address just yet, please do so now so that we can get to it in the next portion of our presentation. Okay, so the first frequently asked question is whether or not the residences will be open in the fall. So if you've been paying attention over the last 15 minutes or so, you should know that we are intending for our residences to be open. We know that residence is a really important component of university life for many of you, and we're really looking forward to welcoming you to campus in the fall. The second question is what measures will be in place to reduce the spread of COVID-19? So over the last few months, we've been particularly hard at work implementing a variety of safety measures to ensure that our residence communities remain safe for folks who are living with us. These measures meet, and in many cases, they actually exceed guidelines provided to us by public health. Some of these measures include a variety of signage that we've posted throughout the residence facilities to encourage physical distancing, the practice of good personal hygiene, like washing your hands and not touching your face. We've also installed additional hand sanitizing dispensers and physical distancing equipment, such as plexiglass barriers at our residence front desk and throughout the residence as well. All residences have also implemented enhanced cleaning protocols that include regular disinfection of our facilities and more frequent cleaning of high touch points, things like elevator buttons and doorknobs. Our resident staff teams have also received additional health and safety training so that they're well prepared should there be any concerns or folks in residence who become ill. The next question is how to seek accommodation if you have an accessibility need. And this is a particularly great question to be asking now. Accessibility services here at the University of Toronto will be an excellent resource for you, and I encourage you to visit their website. You can do so at www.accessibility.utoronto.ca. Their website will have some information about how you can go about registering with their service, as well as what types of documentation you might require. While you're doing so, I'd also encourage you to reach out to the Dean's office at the residence that you prefer to live at to begin discussions with them so that we can prepare for your arrival. The last question is, if you choose not to move into residence in the 2020-21 academic year, can you retain your residence guarantee? So unfortunately, the residence guarantee does apply only to our first year students, but with that said, there are many spaces available for upper year students within our residence communities. So if you are interested in living with us come fall 2021, keep an eye out for our applications that will be opening in February or March 2021. There's a link posted along the bottom of the slide, so if you are interested in reviewing some additional frequently asked questions on the Office of the Vice Provost Students website, please take a peek at the link after today's session. But with that, I'm going to pass it back to Melinda so we can get started on answering some of your questions today.
Great, thank you so much, Steve, and all of our presenters today. Now, really, we're going to be getting to what I think is the heart of our session today, which is answering your questions, because we know that there are things that you're wondering about, things that you're worrying about, and our hope today is to really have an opportunity to answer as many of them as we possibly can. So I'm going to start things off with a question about double and single rooms, and I'm actually going to direct this to Leah McCormick-Smith, who's the Dean of Students at New College. And Leah, the question is, will double rooms be arranged into single rooms to help with physical distancing in the fall? And if so, how might this affect the pricing for residents?
Thank you, Melinda. That is an excellent question, and I think one that a lot of people are thinking about. So yes, currently the plan is to move all double rooms into single rooms to ensure physical distancing for all students on campus. How that will impact the cost, this does mean that costs will be based on single room fees in the case for most residences. However, I would encourage, if you are concerned about that price point and thinking about how you're going to support that, that you reach out to your registrar's office to talk through some financial options, because we do want to make sure that students have an opportunity to get here. And so I know that that might change the perspective for some people, but if you contact your college, then we would be able to talk to you a little bit more about that. Thanks so much. Back to you, Melinda.
Thank you so much, Leah. Our next question is actually about self-quarantining, and we know that we have a number of international students in our session today, and we have many international students who are coming to campus in the fall. I'm going to direct this question to Dave Kim, who's the Dean of Residence at the Chestnut Residence. And Dave, the question is that if a student is required to self-quarantine for 14 days, are they able to come to campus early to complete that quarantine before the school starts? And when might they know about the dates for that?
Yeah, thank you, Melinda, and to the individual who posed that question. I'm sure it's a thought that's come to many students who are looking to arrive from the fall. So if you do not know, and when arriving to Canada from an international location, there is a mandatory 14-day quarantine, and that can be found on the Government of Canada's website. So we will have provisions for students who need to quarantine for those 14 days available, and some of that information is currently being worked out in terms of location. What will the meal plan look like? What other resources might be required? I've seen a few questions that were posted. We do plan to have that information, at least some preliminary information, in the next few weeks, with a better outline of some of the details. I'd say coming in July. We recognize there are students who are looking to book flights, make their arrangements to arrive for the fall. So I'd say stay tuned, take a look again at the Vice Provost Students website in the next couple of weeks, at least for any preliminary information. If you do have any sort of more immediate questions, however, we do ask that you reach out with those specifically. So I hope that answers the question for now. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Dave. Our next question, we have another question related to COVID, and I'm going to direct this question to Kristen Moore, who's the Dean of Students at Trinity College. Kristen, the question is about the virus and looking to the future and concerns about whether or not the virus might get worse again. The question is from James, and he's wondering that if things were to worsen again and the university had to move completely online, as it did in March of this past year, would students get a refund on their residence and meal plan for that time that they could no longer be in residence, or how might that be handled? Kristen?
Thanks, Melinda. That's a really good question. I think something that a number of students are probably wondering at this point in time. As folks probably are aware, this was a situation that we encountered this past winter, and it was something that those of us who've worked in universities for a while had never seen in the past. A really, as folks have said, unprecedented situation. And the way that was handled at that point in time is that we were taking advice from local public health, as well as the university leadership in trying to make a decision about whether or not it would be best for students to remain in residence or to have them leave. If we were to encounter something like that again, we believe that we'd be taking advice from public health, and we would be looking at doing very similar things to what we did this past year. Details of those types of things can be found in your specific residence occupancy agreement, and it'll outline sort of the steps that potentially might be taken if there's a situation similarly to what happened this past year, and we definitely would be looking at ensuring that student safety is of primary importance, and recognizing that in the past we had offered refunds for students based on times they weren't able to be in residence, and students can expect something similar if we were requiring students to leave residence. Thanks, Melinda, back to you.
Thank you so much, Kristen. We have another question here about students being able to come for the spring term instead of the fall term. I'm going to direct this question to DJ Cison, the Manager of Housing Services at Student Housing. DJ, Meiling from the Faculty of Engineering and Applied Science is wondering if students will be allowed to hold a place for the spring term instead of the fall term. Would you be able to address that question? So with DJ experiencing some technical difficulties, I'm going to ask Steve Moss, who's the Dean of Students at Innis College. Steve, would you be able to address that question? Would students be able to hold a place for the spring term instead of the fall term?
Yes, absolutely. So if you are interested in arriving in the spring term, so January, it'll be important to you that you take note of the active applicant process that Dave went over a few moments ago. That does allow you to arrive a little bit later in the semester. Back to you, Melinda.
Thank you very much, Steve. Our next question is a question that I'm going to actually direct to Kelly Castle, who's the Dean of Students at Victoria College. Kelly, we have some students who are wondering about privacy and confidentiality and about what types of information students that the university would typically share with the students' parents or family members, and to what extent the university protects students' privacy or confidentiality.
Hi, Melinda. Thank you. Our relationship is with the students, so unless you are under 18, our conversations are with you, and it's very important to us that we be able to understand your circumstances if you're having difficulty academically, if you're having difficulty personally or emotionally, in a confidential way so that we can help you the best we can and not have you think that we're going to forward information on to your parents. That said, your parents can call us. We often have circumstances, I'm imagining that there are a few parents out there, we often have circumstances where parents are concerned about their kids and they can let us know. We won't necessarily be able to call you back and give you all of the information, but we will certainly look into it and try and find out how your child is doing. But confidentiality is, we maintain confidentiality of students' interests and needs.
Great. Thank you very much, Kelly. Our next question I'm going to be directing to, I just lost my question. So I'm going to be directing this next question to Kristen Moore, Dean of Students at Trinity College. Kristen, would you be able to tell us, we have a question about will students be allowed or continue to live in residence in fall even if all of their classes are online?
Thanks, Melinda. That's a great question. As we've indicated on the Vice Provost Students website, our residences are open and we are accepting applications. It doesn't matter if your classes are all online or if there is potentially some in-person component that you're able to come for, you are welcome to live in residence. So your classes don't need to be taking place in person in order for you to live here. If that's a decision that you think is best for you and an experience that you're looking for, that we are accepting your applications and making offers for the fall, and we would be happy to have you live with us. Thanks, Melinda.
Thank you so much, Kristen. I have a question here for Leah McCormick-Smith, Dean of Students at New College. Leah, we have some students who are wondering about about orientation in the fall. So not necessarily a specifically residence question, but students are wondering if orientation will be taking place and what they might be able to expect from that experience. Leah?
That is a fun question, so thank you, Melinda, for sending that one to me. Yes, good news. We will be having an orientation in the fall. We do think that that's a really important aspect of first-year students joining us here at U of T. And so all of us are in the planning mode for orientation for fall. Now, some things that we do know, it's not going to look exactly the same, and some of that is because not everybody's going to be joining us on campus starting in the fall, and we want to make sure that everybody can participate. And so some of the stuff may include some virtual sessions where people have an opportunity to connect, connecting a little bit more one-on-one or in smaller groups with some of our leaders online. And there may be, as long as Toronto Public Health and Ontario Public Health guidelines allow, some in-person stuff happening on campus for those who can make it. And so what I would suggest is keep in touch with your college or your faculty, because this information is being worked on right now and is coming out as quickly as possible. And you'll be getting more details about that soon. But yes, I am happy to report that orientation plans are coming, and we look forward to having you all join us virtually and in person on campus for that. Back to you, Melinda.
Great, thank you so much, Leah. It sounds like, I think, DJ is back online, and so I'm going to direct this next question to him because we have a question about the duration for which students are able to rent their residence room, and whether students can do that for half a year or month to month or 3 months. DJ, would you be able to talk to students about the occupancy agreement period?
Sure. Thanks, Melinda. So typically, once you accept an occupancy agreement from a specific residence, that means that you would be moving into residence for the remainder of the year. If you do decide to
Uh-oh, it looks like DJ might be having some technical difficulties again. I think we're having a little bit of trouble hearing you there, DJ. So
Hello? Can you hear me again?
We can. Perfect.
Oh, okay, great. I'm not sure where I cut off there. But if you do decide to move out of residence partway through the year, you would just want to look at your occupancy agreement and let your residence office know when that would be, and there would be details in your agreement of what you would need to do to move out of residence. but you are able to do that during the year.
Thank you so much, DJ. I know that it's always difficult. We're always trying to manage all the technical aspects of a presentation like this, so we really appreciate your patience. Our next question I'm going to actually direct to Dwayne Rendell, who's the Dean of Students at St. Michael's College. Dwayne, we have a question about living in residence and college membership. We have a student who's wondering, if you live in residence at a different college, does that mean you automatically become a member of that college?
So for the most part, if you're going to be living at the residence that you are affiliated with, if you are part of that college. So the majority of people would be in that category, but certainly students who are in professional faculties and other disciplines who don't have a home college of their own would be welcome to stay in the colleges. And in answer to the specific question, yes, when we take in a student who's in engineering or kinesiology or pharmacy or architecture and they're living at St. Michael's College, they do become a member of St. Michael's College in an unofficial capacity. But there are fees that they would pay that allow them to participate, to vote in student union elections, and to be treated just like a member of the community.
Great, thank you so much, Dwayne. We have a number of questions about meal plans. And so I'm going to start by addressing this question to Dave Kim, who is Dean of Residence at the Chestnut, and then we may have some other folks jump in as well, because there is some variation across colleges and across residences. But essentially the question is, what types of meal plans exist across the campus and across different residences? And do students who live in a suite style residence need to buy a meal plan?
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Melinda. And so perhaps what I'll do is I'll start with focusing on the meal plan at Chestnut Residence. And then, as Melinda mentioned, there are a few different meal plan structures depending on the residence environment in which you're living. With suite style, typically having students using kitchen facilities. However, there usually is an option that's provided by our food services on campus where you can buy into a meal plan that gives you access to some of the various outlets around the St. George campus. So at Chestnut, for the past number of years, our meal plan has predominantly functioned as an all you care to eat. So you swipe your card, you enter the dining hall, and you're permitted to take and eat, consume as much as you would like, so, and at your leisure. So one of the things we are looking at this year is a revision to that model where students would be, rather than have an all you care to eat model, it would be operate as a declining balance. So you would go in, pick the particular food item that you would prefer, and you'd pay for whatever that item or those items would be. And that enables the students to take the food out of the dining hall, whereas in the past they would not be able to, with some limited seating within that space. Some of the other things that are important to note is we're looking at capacity, so the number of people we'd have in the dining hall. Of course, that would permit for social distancing. The way that the culinary team would deliver and prepare that food to ensure that there are higher safety thresholds, use of disposables, hand washing, which is a normal part of their practice, of course, but the changeover of tongs, models where rather than students going to, let's say, a buffet station and serving themselves, it would be served by a member of our culinary team. A lot of this information will be up on the You Eat website. So the food services team is currently looking to update that information. I've personally done a walkthrough of our dining hall where they're shifting the way that traffic will flow to ensure there's more one-way traffic. Again, more efficient delivery of the food services, of the food and the meals. And the other possibility that we're looking at is having assigned times where students will be invited down, again, in order to limit the number of individuals within the dining hall at any given time. So if there are any other further questions, what we will do is the Chestnut website, you can refer to the site and we'll be looking to update those as we receive information from our food services team. So I'll pass on to anyone else who also operates a dining hall or anyone with a suite style environment that would be able to answer. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dave. I think that it would be great to hear from someone with a suite style residence. And so I'm going to pass it to Mauricio Rodriguez, who is the Assistant Dean Residence Administration at Woodsworth, to speak a little bit about how meal plans work or don't work at the Woodsworth residence. Mauricio? Well, it looks like we're having a little bit of difficulty hearing from Mauricio, and so I might pass it over to Steve Moss, who's the Dean of Students at Innis College, which is also a suite style residence, to hear a little bit more about meal plans or in meal plan options for students who are living in a suite style environment. Steve?
Absolutely. So as Dave mentioned, our suite style residences do have fully equipped kitchen facilities. So there's no need for an individual to purchase into a meal plan. Many folks actually find that to be one of the things that appeals to them about living in such a residence. Having said that, should you choose to purchase a meal plan, you're absolutely able to. Now, you will want to check in with the location, whether that be University College or ancillary services that is offering the meal plan that you're interested in, as there might be some adjustments in relation to keeping the facility safe. Within a residence, though, to talk a little bit about food, some of the questions that we have received over the last few weeks is how folks are going to get access to groceries and things like that. So we're actually well located. Many of the residences are well located across campus in proximity to grocery stores. There are also a variety of delivery services and options that can help assist with procuring food and whatnot. And of course, while we don't recommend this too frequently, we do know that folks living with us do make use of food delivery apps from local restaurants and things like that. So regardless of whether or not you're living in a residence with a meal plan or living in a suite style residence without, you should have no issues in finding great, delicious food. Back to you, Melinda.
Thank you so much, Steve. And I think I would just tack on to this just to know that we've heard from a couple of different residences. Each of the residences has their own meal plan options or can help you connect to the meal plan options that are correct for you. So I would encourage you to connect with your own individual residence when you're assigned to determine how will the meal plan operate and what are the options that are available to you. And we'll be providing you with the contact information for each of them at the end of this session as well. The next question that we have, I'm going to direct this question to Kristen Moore, who's Dean of Students at Trinity College. It's about residence facility and the extent to which some of the amenities that exist in residence are going to be available in the fall. So things like music rooms, study rooms, gyms, and those types of things. Kristen, would you be able to speak to that?
Absolutely. Thanks, Melinda. So as it pertains to various different common spaces, obviously, again, we're taking our advice from public health. Right now, we do have students that are living in residence with us, and the majority of those facilities are closed. And that's an unfortunate situation that we're in at the moment. We are hoping to be able to open some of those facilities with potentially reduced capacity come fall. Again, we'll be having to take our advice from public health and looking at the ability to keep students safe. We do anticipate that there'll be an ability for us to use a number of those spaces, probably not in the traditional way that we've always used them in the past, probably having to limit the occupancy of rooms, increase cleaning, providing self-cleaning materials for students who may be using those spaces, but it is our hope to be able to open some of those spaces back up come fall, and there probably will just be a little bit different to how we're normally used to doing things. Thanks, Melinda.
Thank you so much, Kristen. We have another question about a different type of shared facilities in the residence, which is the washrooms. And so I'm going to ask Leah McCormick-Smith, who's the Dean of Students at New College, to perhaps address some of these questions, which is about, first, how do communal washrooms work in residence? And then how do the residences aim to prevent any potential spread of COVID-19 within the residences and those shared residence washroom spaces? So what type of cleaning procedures are in place to help ensure those washrooms are safe? Leah?
Thank you, Melinda. That is a great question, and I know that the washrooms, particularly because they're not going to look quite like the ones at your home, is something that often students have a lot of questions about. Communal washrooms really work like any other washroom, and I think one of the things that becomes kind of funnily unique, and I remember from my time when I was a student using communal washrooms, is that you end up being in there a lot more than you might have thought. And so what the majority of washrooms have are sinks, showers, and toilets, and a variety of stalls. All of those spaces will be private to the extent that they are stall-based, obviously with the exception being the sinks. During COVID, there are some specific things that have happened in the majority of communal washrooms to assist students and sort of maintain social distancing. And some features that people might find are being assigned a specific washroom within your residence community. Usually residence communities may have access to more than one washroom within a shared floor or house space. And so it could be that you're assigned a specific one to make sure that only a certain number of students is using that particular washroom. Those assignments tend to be based on the number of students using a specific facility. So only 2 students sharing a particular sink or shower or toilet. And so those are some of the particular pieces that you might see. The other thing to know is that we are taking the cleanliness of that very, very seriously. And so we do have caretakers going in multiple times a day to make sure that the space is sanitized and all of that for the safe use of everybody in residence. What I would say when it comes to any of the social distancing measures that are being put in place, and when we're thinking about things like washrooms and cafeterias and common rooms, that it's really important to follow the direction of the residents in terms of what it is we're asking you to do. And that is because what we are aligning with is Toronto Public Health and Ontario Public Health guidelines to ensure the safety of the whole community. So the most important thing is when we're asking you to do it in a particular way, to know that this is really thought through for the safety of the community and that we hope that everybody respects that for the respect of the community. And if you have more particular questions, I would say contact your intended residence office or U of T Housing, and they would be able to provide additional details. Thanks, Melinda.
Thank you so much, Leah. I've got a question here for Dwayne Rendell, Dean of Students at St. Michael's College. Dwayne, we have a question. A student's asking, can any of my family members stay with me in the residence?
That's a great question. Yeah, there are often times when brothers or sisters or parents come to visit a family member in residence. We do have protocols and procedures for having overnight guests. We do put a limit on how often people can stay consecutive nights in a row, and I would expect that a lot of the other colleges have similar types of rules just to prevent somebody from becoming a very regular feature on the floor who is not actually paying to live there. So short answer is that yes, I would think that most of the colleges would be able to facilitate an overnight visit from a family member, but it would be for a restricted short period of time.
Great, thank you.
Throw in a little bit there, Melinda.
Yeah, absolutely, Kelly.
Thank you. Hi again. I think that we should probably qualify that by saying that during COVID, we will be deferring to public health. So if there are restrictions on the number of people we can have in different spaces, and if it's a challenge for us to have students with washrooms and common areas, we will be restricting guest access.
That's a really good point, Kelly. And that's actually the system that we have in place now. We certainly have students still living at the college through the summer, and we do currently have a no guest policy. So we're probably looking to have that extended, but if things relax and get back to normal towards the end of next year, guests might be permitted.
Thank you so much, Dwayne and Kelly. Tag team duo, which is perfect. We have another question here that's really about move-in to residence. I'm going to direct this question to Dave Kim, who's the Dean of Residence at the Chestnut. Dave, there's some questions about what are the potential move-in dates for residents in the fall, and I think I would tack on to that, what does the move-in process for residents often look like?
Thanks, Melinda. Well, move-in in any year is a very exciting point of the year for us as it kicks off really the first days of students' experience on campus in residence, meeting individuals, and that will be very much the same with some variations, however. So some things to keep in mind is we're looking at our move-in, so just open up my calendar here, with classes starting around the 10th of September. For the most part, residences, and I'll again focus on Chestnut, we're looking at our move-in weekend from September the 5th to the 7th. However, recognizing that we'll be bringing in people from all over the world, it's not uncommon for individuals to arrive before that weekend or trickle in afterwards as flights start to arrive. One of the things we're looking to do, so without thinking about the 14-day quarantine, because students will likely be able to arrive even earlier, for individuals that are looking to come to the residence, we will be extending that move-in window, likely even up to a week. So looking at the August 29th, 30th weekend. I want to add this point, which is to once again, make sure you pay close attention to communication we will be having sent out to students in the weeks leading up to move-in. So likely by late July, early August, as well as information we will have posted on our website. So if we look at the last week of August is when we'll likely open the doors for students to arrive to residents. We're looking at some other things such as being able to sign up for a time slot. Again, looking at the number of people that would be arriving, it's not uncommon to come if you're able to with family members who are looking to say their farewells and give a hug before the students really settle into their rooms. In terms of other steps of the process, aside from signing up for time slots, we have a number of pieces of equipment that are set up around the residence environment, not only to permit for social distancing, but really to assist students with their move-ins. So we'll have move-in carts, probably volunteers on site, in addition to some refreshments, assisting individuals with unloading their vehicles, taking things up to their room. However, one difference, as I've mentioned this year, is really limiting the not only the people that would be on site, perhaps requesting students to limit the individuals that do arrive with them or to take them up to their room, because we will, at Chestnut in particular, we have 6 elevators that are in operation. So we want to ensure that we're limiting the number of people that would be using those elevators, preferably to 1 student with those that are either in their family or a helper. So I'd say as a look ahead, these are some of the key points, again, with an extended move-in window, but most importantly, to pay attention to information that we will be sending out via our newsletters and that will be up on our website. Thank you, Melinda.
Great, thank you so much, Dave. I see that we have a few questions still about double rooms, single rooms, whether people can request roommates, whether there is any option to live in a double room, either for financial reasons or because it would be a personal preference to have a roommate. And so I'm wondering, Kristen Moore, Dean of Students at Trinity College, if Kristen, you could perhaps address some of those questions about single rooms this year.
Absolutely. Thanks, Melinda. I think that this is one of the questions that came up earlier, and Leah had indicated a little bit about how we were planning to be moving towards all single rooms, and that we would accept requests for double rooms on an individual basis if there was a particular reason. Based on the guidelines that are being put forward by public health, we are looking to have predominantly single rooms throughout the fall semester. If this is something that is of great concern to you for a particular reason, my best suggestion would be for you to get in touch with your preferred residents and to ask them a few questions about what their protocol could be for the fall. We're always happy to work with students individually, especially if there are specific circumstances that would warrant an exception to something that we're doing. Again, the decisions that we're making are to try to keep students as safe as possible, but we always recognize that there are exceptions to every situation. And if this is something that is of a predominantly financial concern for you, getting in touch with your preferred residents, the dean's office, or if you're at a college, your college registrar, to consult about different options that are available to you for financial aid would be another suggestion. But again, if you reach out to your preferred residents, you can speak with someone there about what the options available to you are, and they can help walk you through what we can possibly offer you for the fall. Thanks, Melinda.
Great, thank you so much, Kristen. We have another couple of questions about the option of potentially moving into residence in the winter term, so in January versus in September. And so I'm wondering, Leah McCormick-Smith, if you, from New College, students at New College, would you be able to talk a little bit about the potential option to remain an active applicant and move into residence in January?
Absolutely. And so obviously we know for some students, because of travel restrictions and other things, they're not necessarily going to be able to get here for a September start. And so what's really important is that you continue to follow the deposit schedule as outlined by student housing, and information is going to be sent out to folks as that is coming due. The first deposit is due this week on the 19th, and I'm going to ask DJ to correct me if I'm wrong there. And then there will be a second deposit due in July. Student housing is going to send you the information about what each of those deposits mean and what you have to pay in order to hold your space. And then once you do, if you are unable to move in with us for September, that what you want to indicate is you want to hold that $600 and you are hoping to arrive on campus later. And then you will pay the second deposit once you are sure that you can arrive on campus and are looking for a space. And you would communicate that with student housing, who would then help us navigate where you would be placed. And so, yes, it is possible to arrive later. There will be probably a date at which we say that that is not going to be done off the $600 deposit, and that you would just apply to a wait list and arrive when you're ready and we have a space for you. But we do want to ensure that students who are coming in later have that opportunity as well. Back to you.
Great, thank you so much, Leah. Our next question, I'm going to direct this to Kelly Castle, Dean of Students at Victoria College. It's a question really about classes, because we know that course selection is going to be impacting students' decisions about whether you're going to be coming to residence or not. The question is really whether there's been a decision if the fall semester would be online or not. Kelly, would you be able to answer that question?
Yeah, sorry, I was just muted. It's an irregular state for me. That's an excellent question. Lots of students are asking that. As Kristen answered before, which is related to this, students are welcome to come and live in residence regardless of whether they're doing online or in-person classes. The model for University of Toronto is that there are no classes where it won't be possible to do your courses online. So that's sort of the most fundamental starting point. From there on, I would say you really should be checking with your registrar within the different faculties, because it differs from what I've just said. It's the Faculty of Arts and Science specifically, but the other professional faculties have slightly different requirements and abilities with respect to doing classes online and in person. Some of us will have, some of you will have labs, for instance, and you'll have specific questions about labs. There are lots of different music students will have lots of questions about practice spaces and juries. So I strongly recommend that you get in touch with your specific faculty, but definitely there are going to be both online and in-person courses.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelly. We have a question here that I'm going to direct to Steve Moss, Dean of Students at Innis College, and it's a super important question. It's one of the basics. What should I bring and what should I not bring to residence with me in the fall?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it will vary slightly depending on the type of residence that you're living in when you arrive. So if you're in an apartment style residence like those at Innis College, Woodsworth College, and Ralph Jackman at Victoria College, you'll obviously need to bring a few more things to ensure that you can make use of the kitchen facilities. If you are going to be living in a dorm style residence, obviously you won't be needing kitchen supplies, but there are obviously common items that you'll want to bring with you. I'd encourage you to visit the website of your preferred residence. Most of us do have lists of items that we encourage you to bring, and of course a few that you are unable to bring, most often for safety reasons. So it's good you're thinking about it already. Take a peek at the website so you can learn a little bit more. Back to you, Melinda.
Great, thank you so much, Steve. We have a few questions as well about just residence life. What will it be like to live in residence with some of the restrictions that may be in place related to COVID-19? So questions about bubbling, double bubbling, about keeping a safe distance and these sorts of things. I'm going to direct this question to Kristen Moore, who's Dean of Students at Trinity College. Kristen, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about what you think, what students can expect from residence life, what might be the same, and what are some of the differences that they might encounter in the fall?
Absolutely. Thanks, Melinda. Well, I think I spoke about previously some of our common spaces, and so as of right now, a number of those spaces aren't open. However, we are hoping to have them open for fall, and again, they would probably come with some different expectations around them. Generally speaking, you know, our common spaces have room occupancy that have to do with things like fire code. However, we can anticipate probably having room occupancies that deal more with restrictions or guidelines that are offered to us from public health in terms of moving forward. We have amazing student staff that work within the residences. Our residence life staff, our dons and our RAs, and you know, folks that do programming, other students who volunteer their time as council members, as student government members, and all of those folks are going to be offered you know, training this summer and the ability to start to think about how we program for students in a residence where there could be different types of expectations than we have had in the past. I think some of the things that we're thinking about right now are things that you're probably hearing, you know, in the media and on the news about, you know, physical or social distancing and, you know, number of students that are allowed in various different types of spaces. By September, we plan to have, you know, this information rolled out to students. You can expect to see things like probably increased signage, a lot more literature, a lot more information, stuff passed to students in their residence rooms, conversations with the residence life staff in the buildings to talk about what expectations are. And again, just generally an environment that we probably see fewer large groups, a lot more small groups, and different ways of sort of doing things than we have in the past. And, you know, while that might be different for us, I think that it creates a lot of opportunity for students to have smaller, more personal interactions with individuals and get to know folks on a smaller group basis, which for a lot of students is something that's actually very comforting. So while, you know, the residences will likely look a lot different this fall than they have in the past, we think it's a really great opportunity for students to build community on an individual level with folks in their areas. Thanks, Melinda.
Great, thank you so much.
Can I add one little tiny thing there too, please? I'm sorry to do two interjections.
No problem.
One other thing is that a lot of the stuff that has been done since March, we've been getting a lot of questions around this too about residence life. A lot of the things that students have been doing since March are things that students didn't used to do before. So we have things like amazing how to cut your hair during COVID and how to cook things and origami and book clubs where people read books and then go for 2 hours with a discussion group online. So some of the stuff that caught us off guard in March is really much more ready to go for September. So the student groups themselves are mobilizing in terrific ways. The other thing is that lots of people are asking about masks and the use of masks, so whether they'll see that on campus when they arrive. Right now, of course, we'll take our lead from public health there as well, but right now masks are not required in Toronto, but in cases where social distancing isn't possible, they'll be recommended. So we'll follow the lead from public health there as well, and University of Toronto will be providing reusable non-medical masks for students if they wish to use them.
Great, thank you so much, Kelly. I'm conscious of time, so we're going to take just one more question here, and I'm going to give the last word to Steve Moss, who's Dean of Students at Innis College. And the question is that sort of very practical question about deposits. So if I pay my first deposit, if I decide to cancel residence before July 31st, will I be able to get a full refund of that $600 deposit? And if I choose to defer my studies for a year, will I be able to maintain my residence guarantee? I have a dog, and he is very excited at this moment about this question for Steve Moss.
I also have 2 dogs, and I'm just praying that they're going to keep quiet over there. So excellent question. So if after paying your first deposit, you decide that you no longer wish to attend residence, you are able to cancel. And if you do so before July 31st, you will receive a full refund of that $600 deposit. The question with respect to deferral, if I understood the question correctly, got a little bit distracted by the barking, is that yeah, you are welcome to reapply to residence next year, but you would not be guaranteed in the way that many of our first-year students currently are. So as I mentioned, keep an eye out for when we open our applications to our current residents, which would likely occur in February or March 2021, so that you can submit your application and be considered for accommodation come fall 2021. Back to you, Melinda.
Thank you so much, Steve. And yes, that was the exact question. So very much appreciate you taking that one. We are just about out of time today, and so I'd just like to take our last moment to let you know about some of the contacts that are available to you if you still have questions. We will be looking at all of the questions that were posted today, looking to see if there were any common questions that we didn't get a chance to address, and posting those as frequently asked questions on our websites. If you would like to contact us directly, you can always do that to ask your question. If you are a Faculty of Arts and Science student, we'd recommend that you contact the residence office of your college. So all of those contacts are listed right on this slide. If you are admitted to one of the professional faculties, so engineering, music, kinesiology and physical education and health, architecture, we would recommend that you contact Student Housing Services. That's residents@utoronto.ca. And if you have questions that are specific to the Chestnut residents, please feel free to reach out to them directly as well. We want to thank you all for joining us today. We're so happy that you could be here. It's always so wonderful to see all the questions come in and to see everyone joining us from all around the world. And we're very, very much looking forward to meeting you in September. Wish you all the best, and please don't hesitate to reach out with questions throughout the summer.